Chesebro, the Detached tent number 23 was chartered in 2012 at the Wisconsin School for the Deaf. Mary's family came from New York in 1847, settling on a farm west of Delavan in 1850. Her sister was deaf, and a deaf teacher was hired for her and several other children. And Mary and her father worked to promote the Wisconsin School for the Deaf in Delavan that was established in 1852. During the Civil War, Mary distributed shipments of materials for soldiers and went with them to be sure they reached the soldiers. And then she nursed hospitalized soldiers, working without pay through the rest of the war. And the Daughters of the Union Veterans organization is made up of direct lineal female descendants of Civil War veterans and is intended to uphold the principles of freedom, promote patriotism, and honor and assist veterans who have served our country. Who are buried here, and I could find information if there was a birth and death, actual death date. So I looked there for biographies in the newspapers. And Levi Stedman Jackson was born in 1844 and was the son of Levi Stedman Jackson, born in 1819, who lived in Geneva. Young Levi is listed in his service record as 18 in 1861 when he went in. The newspaper account says he was only 16 and convinced the recruiter to accept him. He served until September 8, 1865. Online is a picture of him in a Civil War uniform. His father, also Levi Stedman Jackson, went in at 42 in August 1862 to June 1865. After the war, young Levi and his wife had 2 sons and a daughter born in Missouri, and a son Arthur, born in Delavan in 1882, who died here in 1984. The younger Levi returned to Delavan as an associate of J.N. Hollister in the general store for a time, lived in Racine, and returning to Delavan became the vice president of the Citizens Bank of Delavan and was involved in the development of Delavan's Lake Jackson Park. Many Delavanites remember Art Jackson, son and grandson of the veterans. The Hollister General Store where young Levi worked was converted into Jackson Flats on the corner of Walworth Avenue and South Main Street, owned by Art Jackson and his wife Florence. Renovated a few years ago, apartments, a cheese shop, and several other businesses now occupy the historic site. And then John B. Hall went into the Civil War at 18 in 1863 and mustered out November 15, 1865. He farmed on Delavan Lake's South Shore. As the lake began attracting tourists, he rented rooms and later built onto the house, and the area became known as Paul's Park. Later, the Swedish Village was built there, and now the Village Supper Club that is entertaining guests enjoying our lovely lake, good food. And then Albert E. Smith, who is commonly known as Captain Smith, was born in 1839. He went into service September 5, 1881, a first lieutenant, and by June of 1862 was made a captain for distinguished coolness and bravery in action. He was mustered out December 10, 1864. A later account notes that he became a mining engineer of wide reputation and extensive experience, who had many thrilling experiences in the mining regions of the West and Southwest. And he was twice elected Delavan's mayor and went to the Wisconsin Assembly in 1900 with 2,674 votes to 840 for one of his opponents and 166 for the other. So he certainly was a popular man. And he died on June 21st, 1932. And then there are a number of others.
I'm Dr. D.B. Devendorf. I was a long-time resident of Delavan. you'll notice in the program it says I was with the 1st West Virginia and the 19th West Virginia. That's a misprint. It was the 1st Wisconsin and the 19th Wisconsin. When they asked me for my biographical data, I hand wrote it, and you know what bad penmanship physicians have, so they misread it. So I'm here in my uniform as an assistant surgeon for the 1st Wisconsin Volunteer Infantry. It's the war. Let me tell you a bit about myself before that. I was born in 1820 in upstate New York. My father, who lies beside me, Henry, was a very well-to-do farmer who was active in local politics and held a lot of local political offices. We stayed in New York for a number of years. In I was educated at the Liberal Institute in Clinton, New York, and then I entered a 3-year course of study at the Geneva Medical College in Geneva, New York. Now at that time, medicine was a lot different than it is now. Most medical school courses were 2 years, so Geneva was a little bit ahead of the time. You could also, and when you graduated, you were granted an MD degree, a diploma, which I was granted in January 1st of 1845. So I became what was known as a diplomate physician. Now you could also apprentice to a physician, and he could teach you all you knew, and then he would give you a certificate saying that you were ready to go out and practice. And then you became a certified physician. At that time, there were no board exams, there were no licensure agreements or anything else. Especially out west, a person could come and paint a sign that said John Smith physician and could practice medicine. We also didn't have very many attorneys, so there wasn't a lot of malpractice litigation. Kind of went hand in hand. About 1856, the boom times that happened after the Mexican War started to come to an end. It became a recession that led into what was known as the Panic of 1857. Things got very bad out east. A number of New Englanders and New Yorkers started to move to this area for a number of reasons. One was inexpensive land. Another was a lot of the New England Yankees liked the temperance movement and were abolitionists. And there was a strong temperance movement and abolition movement in Delaware. So many people from New York and New England came here. I came with my wife, Helena, who I had married in 1853. We brought our children along, and we had 4 children in our lifetime. John, who worked for the U.S. Survey in Colorado, and then worked as on the wholesale tobacco business in Milwaukee. We had twins, Nora and Frank. Frank became a traveling salesman based out of Milwaukee. Nora was married to a Mr. Schuster for a while, and then they got divorced. She's laying in the end there. That's her grave. And then we had another child who died in infancy, Nelson. So I came in 1856 to set up a medical practice. I had set up, after graduating from medical school, took me a year at the New York hospital, the hospital in the city of New York, to hone my skills, as it were, and practice in a number of different locations in New York before settling here in Delaware in 1856. My father always instilled in me the value of hard work and perseverance. He always instilled in me hard work and perseverance in public service, because he believed in that. So it was only natural when the Civil War broke out that I would want to volunteer. At the start of the Civil War, medicine in the military was very different than it is now. Everybody thought it was going to be a very short war. They thought it was going to be 1 or 2 battles. That was going to be it. Everybody would go home. Well, after the first, so as a result, they thought that the few physicians that they had in the Army at the time would be more than enough to take care of the few wounded that were in. Well, Bull Run took care of that in a hurry. So they started getting physicians into each regiment of volunteers. The original 1st Wisconsin was only a 3-month regiment. After the 3 months, then they reconstituted into a full-fledged 3-year regiment, which is what I joined. I became an assistant surgeon. Each regiment had 1 surgeon and 2 assistant surgeons, and we were required to administer to the health needs of basically the first real action that I had with the 1st Wisconsin was at the Battle of Perryville, Kentucky, October 8th, 1862. Very, very, very bloody fighting for the number of men engaged. General Buell, who was the commander of the Army of the Ohio, when he came up to pursue General Bragg from Tennessee into Kentucky, left the ambulances and a lot of the baggage trains because he didn't want it to encourage his movements. So when we got there, we had no plans for even setting up a field hospital. We had very limited supplies, and we had to deal with these tremendous casualties. A number of us on the regiment level got together, pooled our resources, found any building and shelter we could have, and set up field hospitals. There we worked day and night for a number of days to save as many men as we could. I'm proud to say that 2 of my surgeries at that battle are recorded in the Medical and Surgical Journal of the War of the Rebellion. Both were right arm amputations, one from a lad from Wisconsin and one from a lad from Pennsylvania. Both of them recovered, were sent home to their families, and ended up receiving a pension. Spirit, yes. What unit?
What unit was your great-grandfather?
Was it Wisconsin, or was it first or second?
Because 24th was there too, but they saw action also. But the first would have been my unit.
Right.
So shortly after that, I think maybe because of the role I had in setting this thing up and consolidating these hospitals and doing as well as we can, I was assigned as post surgeon to the Danville Post Hospital, which was basically the entire city of Danville became a field hospital. And the wounded there stayed for up to 6 months while they were recuperating or being able to send them to the actual general hospital. Shortly after, in May of 1863, I was appointed surgeon of the 19th Wisconsin, which was based in Virginia. My orders were signed by General James Garfield, who later became President of the United States. They sent me to Virginia. I served there, became a brigade surgeon with the 4th Brigade of the 18th Corps, and then General Baldy Smith, who was the commander of the 18th Corps, made me Chief Medical Inspector, which meant that I was in charge of making sure that the entire Corps hospital, which was roughly 90 physicians and all of the ancillary staff, I had to inspect all those hospitals and keep them running. I was then sent to administer the Chesapeake Hospital, which was in Fort Monroe, Virginia. That was a very large hospital strictly for officers. And after that, in March of 1865, as the war wore down, I was made medical purveyor for the entire Army of the James, which was one of the armies involved with the surrender of Chesebro. I returned to Delavan, entered private practice, also became active in community affairs. I was not an active office seeker, but I served as on the village board of trustees for 3 terms, and I had 1 term as Justice of the Peace. Serving with me as Justice of the Peace at the time, in 1876, was Delavan's other Civil War physician, Dr. George Briggs, a colleague of mine. He joined the 18th Wisconsin in September of 1862 and participated in the Vicksburg campaign. Unfortunately, shortly after he got down there, he contracted malaria and had to resign his commission. He moved back to Delavan, practiced medicine, and bought a drugstore from a Mr. Chandler that was over on Main Street. In 1867, he retired from the practice of medicine, but he operated the drugstore until he moved to Albert Lee, Minnesota in the mid-1890s. I was also director of pensions, or pension examinations for Delavan. One of the pensions that I approved was Dr. Briggs. He got an invalid pension for his malaria. So I went on to, I was also a physician at the School for the Deaf. I was a surgeon for the Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul Railroad for 30 years. Member of the Moose, of the Masons, and the Grand Army of the Republic, George Thomas Post Number 6. I also continued the practice of medicine, and in 1880, I was appointed to the faculty of the Wisconsin Dental College, which was established in Delavan. The building is still standing. It was at 124 East Walworth. It was formed by a dentist named George Morrison and his brother John, who was another dentist, and 4 physicians, one of whom gave the original land. I passed away on April 24th, 1906. Now, with all looking back on my life, I had a lot of success, tragedy like anybody else, but I had a very good life.